Hello, founders. Welcome. I have a very special session and video plan for all of you. As you can see on my screen, we are going to talk about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Every time we talk about customer acquisition and going out and going from 0 to 1 or automating customer acquisition when it comes to B2B strategy, you're trying to get clients, maybe you're a service provider, or just trying to get those first users, maybe people to come on board, do some testing, try out your beta, whatever. We're always told, check out LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And sometimes I think Sales Navigator is like this mysterious black box that is supposed to be super magical, but you have no idea how to use it, all that good stuff. So for all of you today, got a very special treat for you. We have here a sales professional. JD, what do you call yourself? What is the title that you actually use?
It varies, but fractional sales leader, B2B fractional sales leader is the most common one.
B2B fractional sales leader. So JD, he's an advisor with me at startups.com. I've heard so many great things about how he's helped other companies. And so what I want to do is talk to all of you founders. Let's put yourself in two scenarios here. First, I want you to be watching this video. If you're a founder and you need to go from 0 to 1, get your first customers, your first 10, and you're using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, this video is for you. Follow along. But then also, let's say you've secured your seed funding and now you actually have to deliver on all your promises in your pitch deck and execute your go-to-market strategy. And LinkedIn Sales Navigator from a B2B perspective is going to be important for you. You want to be paying attention to this video, and you're going to have lots of opportunities to interact, and I'll give you a chance to connect with JD directly if you want help. So appreciate you, JD, coming on board. So give me an understanding. What do you precisely do? Like, what problem do you solve for startups when you come in as a fractional sales leader?
Yeah, so kind of more of a high level, it's implementing what we always say are proven and repeatable sales processes. Now, that is a kind of very all-encompassing term. And really what we help do depends on what the startup founder or the startup itself needs. A lot of times, like what we're talking about today, it's going in and finding that target audience out in the world, right? The truth here is that for most businesses, startups or otherwise, if your target audience is 10,000 businesses, right? Maybe 10,000 founders as an example. You might get a warm referral into a very small number of those, 5, 10, maybe 20. The majority of your audience is still out there, people you never meet at a live event, a networking event, an exhibition, a trade show, whatever. You need to go out and reach out to them cold. In order to do that, you need to go find them and find their contact information. So find them on the web in LinkedIn Sales Navigator or other databases of a different category. That's where the cold outreach comes in, the email messaging, the LinkedIn campaigns, and picking up the phone and doing the old-fashioned dial-in for dollars.
I've heard around our community, around these parts, you're kind of like a LinkedIn whisperer. Okay, this is how I describe you when I say you got to go talk to JD.
Yeah.
Why can't I just go do it myself? Or better yet, why would a founder reach out and ask you for help? I'm thinking it's probably because they don't have knowledge, but what are some of the other reasons that you're helpful at that moment in time for the founder? Or let's say they've started their series, they've raised their seed and they're trying to get to Series A. Like, what's the reason? Why bring you in?
Yeah, certainly. So anyone can absolutely go out and pay for a Sales Navigator subscription. It's not terribly expensive. Month to month, it's $99 a month, I believe. And go out and start, playing around in the platform. Like any other platform, it helps to have some knowledge and experience with it, right? I've been giving LinkedIn my money for Sales Navigator for years and years and years on end now. I've got lots of years, lots of experience, in the platform, on the platform. I know some of the tips and tricks. I've used it extensively here in the startups.com community and in other opportunities. It just helps to kind of cut through the learning curve, I think, a bit to bring me in. Some other things to know is there are a lot of different, what are known in the sales world as sales intelligence platforms, more commonly known as B2B contact databases or B2B lead generation platforms. Some of the names people may have heard are ZoomInfo, which is the big one in the space, but also priced like it's the big one. It's expensive. Apollo.io is another one, and Seamless and Lucia, and there's a billion of them. LinkedIn and Sales Navigator specifically is in that category, but it kind of stands alone. So the big databases, the ZoomInfos, the Apollos, they purport to have in the neighborhood of 260, 65 million people in their database. LinkedIn database is around 850, 860 million. So it's a lot more people. And a lot of those other databases have browser extensions that sit on top of LinkedIn or on top of Sales Navigator. So, as great as LinkedIn is, it does fall short in a couple areas in that you're not generally going to find people's valid and verified contact info, like an email address for their business or a phone number, be it a direct dial or mobile. So you can use some of those other databases in conjunction with LinkedIn to find the people you're looking for in Sales Navigator, and then use another platform to get that other contact data should you need it.
Okay, I'm thinking then, how fair is it to say that LinkedIn is a great foundational piece.
Yeah.
It's where to start, because one of the things that I think LinkedIn has as an advantage is the ability to build your own brand, your own presence, and get inbound as well.
Yep.
Whereas other sales intelligence platforms are all about outbound, reaching out to them. How fair is that?
That's 100% fair. Yeah, LinkedIn is the place to be if you're in B2B. Something like, I forget the exact numbers, but I want to say it's around 80% of kind of initial B2B leads are generated on the LinkedIn platform. So it's a massive number. And I always tell people, like, if you can't find the people you're looking for on LinkedIn, you probably don't want to be doing business with.
Gotcha.
Right?
That's a good point. Now, we're recording this in August 2023. I saw a headline the other day and I thought it was really interesting, but I didn't check out the story. It said, admit it, or we all have to admit LinkedIn is cool now. Now, I'm thinking, was LinkedIn ever not cool, or what evolution have you seen, or why would such a headline exist since you're living in LinkedIn a lot? What's been sort of the temperature or the status of LinkedIn as its own website?
That's an interesting question. It has definitely evolved. I don't know if I'd go as far as calling it cool. That might be a stretch. But that being said, it's a place you have to be. It's a platform you really, if you're in the B2B world, you've got to be on LinkedIn. It's a great place, like what we'll talk about with Sales Navigator, to go out and run filters and search for your target audience. But as you said, Ed, it's also a great place to build your brand. And there's, what is potentially an entirely different conversation about how to do that by kind of, to a degree, hacking the LinkedIn algorithm with the way you post and how you get people to engage with your posts. It's a multifaceted platform. Was it, I want to say 3 or so years ago, Microsoft bought the platform, and there were some changes that came out of that. Some good, some not so good. There's been some restrictions implemented recently to try to keep LinkedIn from becoming a spammy platform in the way that email has become.
Yeah.
But there are platforms now that exist to help you do LinkedIn outreach at scale. There's a number of them. So you can kind of, although LinkedIn just has no love for third-party platforms being used on their platform, you can do it without running afoul of LinkedIn's terms and conditions and run a very effective outreach campaigns at some decent scale in an automated way.
Okay. So let's demo this for our founders who are watching, because I want them to get a full experience. If anything, just do it by themselves, or maybe contact you. Let's say I've got a company, thinking one right now, it's, been around for 5 years. It's still in the startup phase.
Right.
And I want to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. What are the prerequisites? What are the foundational pieces I should probably have in first before I even come talk to you?
Yeah, so you're going to want to know two key things. Those are your ICP, your ideal client profile, and your buyer persona, right? Or your multiple of those if you have multiple of those. So your ICP, ideal client profile, is really focused on the types of companies you're looking for. What verticals are they in? What sizes by revenue or employee counts? As you start to use a platform like Sales Navigator, you'll start to learn the filters, and how you can filter for those companies. There's, of course, geographical filters, industry filters. There's a keyword field that you can use Boolean search terms inside of, and really take advantage of the filter set. One of the things Sales Navigator gives you is a very deep filter set, or a pretty robust filter set, to really narrow into the 850 million people to find your specific target audience. The buyer persona part of it speaks to the people themselves, so the human beings inside the companies, and what are their roles, titles, seniority levels, and then some other things we can get into that are very specific to LinkedIn that don't exist on the other database platforms.
Let's take a look at this. This is my profile here. It was really cool. I actually got a real qualified inbound lead, like virtually no work, just today, set up a call. That's the reason I really like LinkedIn, right? So I follow the standard thing, publish content, all that stuff. My question to you is, how important is it to have my personal profile up to snuff before I start doing anything with Sales Navigator?
Great question. So it's key for a couple of reasons, right? So when this day and age, like it or not, when people want to go and check out a company, they go to the company's website. When they want to check out a person, they go to their LinkedIn profile. That is a fact. You can argue with me all day on it. I'll stick to it. That's where they go. So I found myself guilty of this, right? If I go to somebody's LinkedIn profile and they may be a killer business person, they could be the best partner I'll ever find. Not knowing that ahead of time, if I go to their website or their LinkedIn profile, I'd see they don't have a profile photo. They don't have a decent banner image. There's just almost no content, no activities, nothing. I make a judgment, rightly or wrongly. I go, they seem to be kind of not very well engaged. Conversely, if I go to another LinkedIn profile where it's just the best profile ever, the guy could be a total shark. I don't know, but he looks good on paper, as it were, right? Via their LinkedIn profile. Their banner image speaks to what they do. It's a decent profile photo. There's good content being shared. It's very key to have your LinkedIn profile up to snuff. And there's a whole kind of sub-industry out in the world to help people get their LinkedIn profiles up to where they need to.
And do you help individuals with their LinkedIn profile, or is that something you bring in someone else to?
I can to a degree, but I usually refer them to somebody else for that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now walk me through what experience would I have if I came to you? What questions would you ask? Like, Help me.
Yeah, certainly. So in a moment here, I'll pull up Sales Navigator, but before we do that, and I've done this a number of times now, probably several dozen times during my office hours with startup founders at startups.com, is we first say, we get on a call and we talk about what you just said. Let's talk about who you're looking to connect with. So what are the industries or verticals? What do you know about those companies? Are they small, medium, enterprise, otherwise? Where are they geographically? What's your target market geographically? And we start to filter in, and we can start filtering for some of those in Sales Navigator. And then we have to, in parallel, also think about the people we're looking for. Again, what function do they play in the organization? What level of seniority are they? What kind of job titles might they have? Do you want somebody new to the role or somebody that's been there for a number of years or longer? There's different filters that we'll see as we get into it, we can play with. To take that number of 860 whatever million and start to bring it down to a manageable number, whether that's a few hundred or a few thousand or tens of thousands. You can do that pretty quickly and pretty effectively.
Okay, so let's do a demo. Transparently, JD and I, we were discussing, we said, should we set up an example? And I said, nah, let me just run it like JD's never heard this before, like he's hearing it for the first time. So I'm going to do this. JD, you're going to ask me the questions and I'll just give you the stuff and you walk me through and let's see the magic happen.
Okay. So are you seeing Sales Navigator on screen?
I am.
Right. So just very quickly, right? In almost every platform like this, you're going to have two different sets of filters. One of those being the account filters. So in other platforms, these are called company filters or whatever they might be. These are, as you might imagine, focused on the businesses themselves, not the people. And then we have, in the case of Sales Navigator, the lead filters, often referred to as people filters in other platforms. And there's some crossover between the filter set. This is the full set here of what we'll call lead filters or people filters in Sales Navigator. So I find that I spend most of my time in the lead filters. I don't often need to go to the account filters. There's a couple things there you can do, which is a deeper discussion, probably not germane for this conversation. We'll just stick to the lead filters and see what we can come up with. So Ed, if we were looking for you, let's start with the industry. So there's a predefined bunch of industries here in Sales Navigator, but we can start typing in industry types.
Okay.
So what would be an industry we're looking for?
HR.
So I'm not sure HR is an industry. That's more of a function. Oh, no, here we go. Human resources.
Go.
Services. Right. So we don't have a number yet. As soon as we put this first filter in.
Okay.
So we're looking at 5 million people up here in the upper right. No, let me get that out of the way. 5 million people globally that fall into the industry of human resources.
Great.
So are we looking in a certain geography?
Yeah, let's limit it to, let's say I'm in Canada. Let's start with Canada. Let's start there and fan out.
Okay, so we're going to start with the company headquarters location in the wonderful country of Canada, our northern neighbor. And in Canada, so now we're going to take that 5 million number down to 77,000. You see it says 77,000 plus, so it's around 77,000.
Gotcha.
That's where the companies are. We also want to go and put the person or the people themselves also in Canada. So there's two different geography filters. We'll go here and put Canada in as well and see what that number changes to. So we go from 77,000 down to about 60,000. Okay. Now I'm assuming that you probably want to talk to people who are more decision makers as opposed to kind of entry level folks.
Yes.
So we're going to come down into, let's do this just for the heck of it. Let's put in the function role. Let's put human resources in there as well. You can see here, I've already know it's going to be around 33,000 people. They're human resources people in human resources organizations. Right. So we're down to 33,000. And then if we go to seniority level, branch this out, and we've got a number of default choices here. So kind of a typical thing to do. We've got 178 folks that are at the C level. We've got, there's a VP, there it is, VP 829 at the VP level. And let's go with director. We have 2,000 at the director level. It's a fairly senior set of people.
Perfect.
We've gone very quickly from, 5 million or so down to about 3,000. So 3,000 people is actually a pretty manageable number if you're doing, say, like an email outreach campaign, right? With the proper platforms and tools, you can get through 3,000 people really quickly in a month or so with an email sequence running. Reaching out to them on LinkedIn, that would take a bit longer. But there's more we can do here in Sales Navigator that don't functions that don't exist in other platforms. And those are these here in the recent updates filters, what were until recently called spotlights filters and now called recent updates filters. So you can see there's 157 of these people who have changed jobs recently. Put this slider on and go into just those 157. Now, the reason this is key to know is that generally speaking, people who are new to their role, and these people are all new to their role in the last 3 months or 90 days, people new to their role are generally known to be more open to outside thinking, new ideas, new ways of doing things. They're keen to put their stamp, their own mark on their new role. So they're keen to bring in outside people. Also, there's a number that they tend to spend if they have budgetary authority. They tend to spend something like 70 to I think 80% of their annual budget in the first 3, 4, 5 months or so.
Oh, good
So
to
these
know.
are people to zero in on, right? So here we come down and we can see that these people, these 157, have all been recently hired. So this is a very targeted, potentially low-hanging fruit list of these people here. I'm going to turn that slider off and go, I want to see people who have posted on LinkedIn recently, right? There's 807 of those. So I flip this slider on. Now where this becomes key is two things. One, this is indicative that they're fairly active on LinkedIn. If we have this thing here that says one recent post on LinkedIn and they fall under this slider, these are posts that have been put up on LinkedIn in the last month. The assumption is they're fairly active. So if we run an outreach campaign to these people, there's a much better chance they'll actually see it and potentially reply. More importantly, they'll see it because they're on the platform, they log in. It's known that there are people, it tends to be more techie folks, engineer types who will have a LinkedIn profile, may not have signed on to LinkedIn in a year. Where other folks, sales, HR, recruiting, we live and die on LinkedIn every day, right? So we're in there, we're going to see whatever there is to see. So these are a couple of things that exist only on LinkedIn. See, there's also a mention in the news filter, but none of these people have mentioned in the news, so there's zero results for that. So we've got ourselves down here to a overall list of 3,000 people. Now here we can go and start to reach out to them on LinkedIn in a manual way, but that would take a lot of time and be slow and honestly very painful. You can also take them and drop them into a platform, like one that comes to mind is called Expandy. It's expandi.io. It's a LinkedIn automated outreach platform. You can go and take these people and get them from Sales Navigator into Expandy and start running LinkedIn automated outreach at some decent scale. Or the other thing we could do is we can use a platform like a Zoom Info or an Apollo that has a browser extension. Actually, I usually pay for Apollo. So this is what this little yellow icon is that I moved earlier.
Okay.
So I could actually, let's see, this is the second one I use. It is always in the way. Let me open up the Apollo screen here. And now you can see already I'm seeing there's Lynn Goodale, Allison Ray. The LinkedIn Sales Navigator gives you your results 25 at a time, right? 25 per page. So I've got 25 here. So I can tell Apollo, hey, go out and do your best to find me email addresses and phone numbers for these 25 people. I can run through a page at a time and have it do that for me.
Okay, let's reiterate. Apollo is a sales intelligence platform.
Right.
It's really just a super smart database.
It is,
okay.
Yeah. It does other things as well, but yes.
So then it bridges the gap that you said the shortcoming in LinkedIn is a lack of published contact information. So the browser extension is basically reading what you came up with on LinkedIn and then saying, right, hey, I've actually got the phone number and the direct contact information for these individuals.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. So one thing people want to keep in mind is when you're doing outreach, cold outreach, you never know where you're going to connect with somebody, right? It might be over email, it might be over LinkedIn, it might be on the phone, or some combination of some number of those. So doing outreach on LinkedIn is great. It's really necessary these days, but that doesn't mean you ignore the other avenues. You want to get that data, that email information, that phone number information, and if you have the budget and ability to do so, do all three.
Wouldn't you say then, I'm looking in, I never realized this filter existed. If they posted recently in the last month, then what you pointed out to me is they may be more receptive to a LinkedIn-based outreach, like an in-mail or something like that.
Right. Yeah. To be clear, in my opinion, and the opinion of many other folks in the sales world, there's a higher chance that they'll actually see your message and engage with it because they are active on LinkedIn. So there are folks who are active, meaning they just log in and look at stuff. And then there are folks who have a higher level of activity, more of an engagement with LinkedIn where they get on and post, whether that's original content, resharing, liking, whatever. Somehow they're engaging on the platform.
Gotcha. And most likely they'll look at your profile as well.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. There's a very good chance.
Now you're saying do all three, LinkedIn, outreach, phone, and email.
If you can, yes.
What does that cadence look like? So give me an example. For example, let's use the startup that I'm thinking of right now in our portfolio. We want to deliver a certification course to HR professionals to expand them into the world of organization development. Okay?
Right.
What would I say, or how would that cadence look if I was using all three?
So the first thing we want to talk about there for a moment is the messaging, right? And one area I see a lot of startup founders and a lot of other folks go wrong is in the messaging. You want to keep the messaging all about them, not about you, right? I get LinkedIn messages probably, I don't know, a dozen times a day where people go, hey, Jay, this is what I do and it's great. You want to buy it? That's the theme of the messaging. It does nothing for me. I've gotten a few good messages where they go, hey, I see you're in this role and people in your role tend to struggle with this. Is this an issue for you? And at times it has been. That's good message. The messaging wants to be on point, really, all about them, very little about us. The point of this cold outreach, the LinkedIn and the email stuff, is to drive to that first conversation. I heard a saying years ago, kind of before LinkedIn was the big deal it is now, the world of cold outreach, you want to educate over email and engage over the phone. So I thought it was great. Nowadays, I would say engage over email and LinkedIn educate over email and LinkedIn, engage over the phone. So what a cadence might look like, as an example, is not uncommon in the SaaS world, right? So say a funded SaaS company, they've got an army of inside sales folks, 15 or 20 of them, and all day long they sit at computers and pound out emails and LinkedIn messages and dial phone numbers. So a cadence there to like a SaaS company might be 15, 18, 20 steps or touch points that run over, a month and a half, 2 months, roughly a time frame. But maybe in week one, you've got an email that goes out on a Monday, and then maybe a LinkedIn message on Thursday, but maybe a phone dial attempt, maybe middle of next week, another touch point, and then the third week, another couple of touch points. And that goes on throughout the length of time the campaign runs. But not everyone has the ability to do that kind of intensive campaign. So what I always recommend is at an absolute minimum, you want to do a 5-step, say we're sticking to email to start with, a 5-step email campaign. Again, there are ways to get the messaging nailed down so you can try to drive the engagement up. We can start to pull in what we call personalization into the email campaigns. And some years back, personalization meant your sales engagement platform populated their first name. Mm-hmm. That's not personalization anymore. That's an expectation. Personalization is going out and finding, like, for example, going out to a prospect's LinkedIn profile, finding something they've shared, written, posted, whatever, taking that you can tie back into your value prop and writing that to them in an email. So you're using their own words, because we all have egos, right? If I saw a subject line that said, hey, your LinkedIn post on whatever, I'd be like, well, I did post on that. Let me see what this guy has to say. Right. I would engage. More than likely, I would engage. So at a minimum, a 5-step email campaign, and a rather effective campaign that many smaller companies will do. Say we don't have the budget for email, LinkedIn, and some kind of fancy phone dialing platform. We start with an email campaign, again, a minimum of 5 steps. And right now, until Apple kills this for people, we can go in and track numbers of opens on emails. And if we have any clickable assets in emails, numbers of clicks. We can go in and maybe we've sent out emails to 1,000 people. And generally speaking, you'll find there's the 80-20 rule comes into effect. About 80% of those folks will either never open an email or maybe open one email once. That's all you'll ever see. And you get the other 20% who open twice or 5 times or 17 times over the course of your email sequence. You can take those folks and consider them an engaged audience, and then maybe take that small subset of folks and start dialing them. And depending on the platform you're using, we can set up a dialing sequence or dialing cadence. Maybe it's 5 dial attempts over a couple of weeks with a voicemail left here and there. So now we're focusing in on these folks who, by indicative information we have, seem to be interested in what we're trying to sell them.
Okay, let me pause here for a moment.
Yep.
When you say 5-step sequence in email, you're saying 5 emails?
Yeah, a sequence of 5 emails. It would go out over 2 to 3 weeks, roughly.
Where does the LinkedIn, the in-mail, happen?
Well, so to back up for a moment, right? If we don't have the budget to do all of it, email is the area where you're going to have the best scale. So you'll be able to reach out to the most people the most quickly.
Gotcha.
Now, it may be that, hey, we don't have the budget for everything, so we want to try LinkedIn instead. So we maybe don't do email initially. Again, if you can, you want to do all of it. If you have to be selective or careful with your budget, as many small startups do before funding comes in, before big funding comes in, we then kind of pick and choose. Where do we think we're going to get the most, bang for our buck, the best ROI? Is it email? Is it LinkedIn? If we have to choose between one or the other, we make that choice based on criteria at that time. Okay. If we don't do email and we do LinkedIn, then you to go to a platform like Expandy or one of those similar platforms and start doing that outreach over LinkedIn.
What's the general cost in relation? Like if I'm using a service to help me with my email campaign versus a LinkedIn campaign, what's the difference?
So the magic number is always $99. Everything is $99. Yeah. Okay. So Sales Navigator monthly is $99. The Expandy platform for 1 seat is $99. Apollo for what they call their Pro plan, $99.
Okay, great. So that's all I got to think of now. And all those platforms will do the customization, personalization.
Yes, yeah, they all have the ability to pull in, different varying levels of personalization. But like they have, it's pretty much par for the course now. First, last name, company name can all be pulled in. You can also create custom fields in most, if not all, of these platforms. So if there's other, you've got a spreadsheet of, you have a CSV of data, you've got a custom column or two, and you want to pull those in so that custom content can become part of the email. I did that recently, right? I'm reaching out to law firms on behalf of a client, and it's a cost savings type of offer. So every law firm, depending on the size of the law firm, there's kind of a rough dollar number they might be able to save. So I took a CSV, did the quick formula, created the dollar amount for each law firm, and then that gets pulled in. So my email says, hey, Bob, Jay here from blah, blah, blah. If you could save $15,000 a month, that'd be of interest. And that $15,000 or $8,000 or whatever number is gets pulled in.
Gotcha. Sounds like a Geico commercial, but neither here nor there.
15 minutes or 15%. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, okay, imagine I'm doing it manually, okay?
Yeah.
Just so that get my head wrapped around that. Let's say I send them an email and it's just HR. Hey, HR services is a really tough industry right now. We're seeing lots of growth and expansion in OD. Was wondering if you're thinking about moving into organization development, and getting into different services and things like that. Would love to have a conversation about what problems you're struggling with, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Great. I sent out that email, the first one. And then the second one, what does that second email look like in relation to the first one?
Yeah. So good question. So generally speaking, that very first email, we want it to be very basic. Just text, no fancy attachments, no links, as much as you can avoid all that, because we want that to get through the spam filters and land in the inbox.
Which helps the next emails, obviously.
100%.
Especially if they open it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And generally speaking, once you've gotten an email successfully delivered into a domain and into an inbox, then your follow-on content can be richer in content. And there's a good chance it's also going to land in the inbox.
Okay.
Also, there's a number again, it's in the 70 to 80% range that people read email on their mobile, on their smartphone, right? So it's not a big screen. So if you write a novel, nobody's going to read it.
Sure.
So there are methodologies around how to do very quick, short, very precise, but to the point emails that are easy to read on a smartphone without scrolling multiple times, and also get to the point or pain of a problem. There's a sales trainer named Josh Braun who does a great, what he calls the 4 T's methodology that's great for this kind of thing.
And there's AI like ChatGPT.
Oh, absolutely.
Cut down.
Yeah.
I forgot which other service, basically gives you all the best practices and things like that. So if we're saying educate by email and educate by LinkedIn, social media,
right? What
happens is every email I'm just not a sales professional, so I'm assuming that I, level up just 1 degree every single email. So by the fifth one, it's full-blown educational, like I'm sending the full meal deal, versus the first one is just simple text, get in their email box. That's what I heard.
Yes. So what you can do is, we can actually move beyond just simple text-based emails. There are different platforms that allow us to bring personalized imagery, or what the vendor calls hyper-personalization, into the platform. So, think about your favorite memes, still images, or even animated GIFs you can pull in that, again, those look different in an email inbox. They're a little bit eye-catching because there's a visual component to them, right? Based on how the person views their email inbox. But you can personalize the imagery. So if you can find something like an image or an animated GIF that you can legally and commercially use, that's very important. Legally and commercially use, you can start to do that in outreach. And I've done this. I've had people write back and go, hey, that was, it's hilarious. I love that meme, or whatever, and that gets us into a conversation. Platforms that allow us to do what's kind of generally known as video for sales. Vidyard is one that people are probably familiar with. Hippo Video is another, where we can actually create videos. You can do very long videos, but you want to keep them kind of short because we all have short attention spans nowadays. So about 30 seconds roughly is a good length of a prospecting video. But also these are not delivered via email, right? Because that's a huge file size that would never make it through the cybersecurity protocols in an inbox. But you can take like an animated GIF. This is a segment from your video that sits in the email inbox, or the email body. Click that, a new tab opens. The video sits in a nice purpose-built sales page or landing page with more information, more videos, more content of whatever you'd like. Personalization on the page so they can see their name, their first name or last name, company name, and other stuff. You can personalize the landing page to them with the video content sat inside of it.
And what about that whole strategy of Gary V's jab, 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 right hook? So how it works is educate, and then try and sell them something. Does that work in this instance?
Yeah, well, it definitely works for Gary V, I would say.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be very effective in this context as well. Right?
Okay.
Again, the whole purpose of all of this cold outreach, again, is to try to get them on the phone or on a Google Meet or a Zoom call, right?
Okay.
Get to that first conversation.
Okay. So the next thing is I'm watching the open rates on these emails. And if I see someone opening them, like say someone opened every one, that's when I say I'm going to pick up the phone and call them.
Right. Yeah. So you might have, again, just to keep the math simple, say we've sent emails out to 1,000 people, right? Now, assuming that all 1,000 people went through all 5 emails, we're looking at 5,000 emails sent, right? Now that never happens in real life, but say we're at email number 3 has been sent out now to the whole 1,000 people. So we've got up to 3,000 emails sent. We're going to have a decent number of opens. We might go, okay, let's take these 20 people here, 8 or more opens, or 4 or more opens, or whatever the number is. I'm going to segment that group, take them out, 20 people, try to get them on the phone. And what we actually want to do is take them and drop them into a dialing sequence, because you almost never get somebody on the first dial attempt, but you keep trying and you'll eventually get them on the phone, or realize they're just never going to answer the phone. And then when it comes to dialing, there's a whole other conversation around dialing platforms. You can do what's called click dialing, power dialing, or parallel dialing. The price goes up with each, but the number of people you can dial also goes up with each. So you tend to drive more conversation the higher you go up the dialing platforms.
And when you dial them, when you say dialing sequence, if they don't pick up, do you leave a message, or what do you do there?
Yeah. So say we're doing a 5-step dialing sequence, right? We might leave we can do leave a voicemail on dial 1 and dial 4 or dial 2 and 5. And we figured out there's not really like a scientific, this is when you leave it. But if you're doing 5 or 6 dials, leave maybe two voicemails. If you're doing 10 dials, might leave 3 or 4 voicemails along the course of those.
Gotcha. You don't want to leave a voicemail every single time.
No.
Hi, it's me again. I called you last week, and you don't want to be that guy.
At some point, you kind of cross over into kind of stalking. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. And at what point in time, I'm thinking to myself, they go, how did you get my phone number? Like, how much does that occur? Like, why the hell are you calling me? How did you get my number?
It's a fairly common question. And the answer I always give is, it's on the web. And it's true. I mean, I've gotten a bit deeper with people. I go, listen, at first in my head, I go, why are you asking this? Because we live in the information age. Everything is out there if you know where to find it.
Sure.
I might go a little deeper and go, I use a platform called Apollo and I found it there. The question does come up. I almost never have anybody go, but have people say, I'm not interested. Please take me off your list. That's fine, right? That's part of the game. You're going to get rejection. Once in a while, you get that person that swears at you and calls you names. It happens rarely, but it happens. But those other folks, usually you just go, I found it on the web, and they go, oh, okay. And it rarely goes beyond that.
Okay. And then either when I'm talking to them or leaving a message, I can imagine I would contextualize that message by saying, hey, I saw that you were interested in this, or do I say you opened my email about that piece of content or that article?
Yeah, you can. I generally more allude to it. If I want to allude to that, I might say, hey, this is a quick voicemail. If I'm leaving a voicemail, hey Ed, quick voicemail here, following up on a couple of emails I've shared with you.
Gotcha.
I generally wouldn't. There's nothing wrong with saying you open my emails, but people do say it kind of comes across again a little bit creepy.
Yeah, that's what I
keep
think.
It more general. Like, I'm just following up on some emails I sent you. Well, I'll tell you one thing I'll do with when it comes to dialing, right? When somebody answers the phone, you've got a very, very short amount of time to get them to agree to listen to you for like another 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And there's another whole art and science around this.
Give me an example. What does that look like?
Sure. Everyone does it differently. And you have to find kind of a pattern or cadence that works for your personality, because what I do won't work for somebody else, and what somebody else does won't always work for me. But for me, what I generally do, because I'm kind of a goofy guy, right? So say I cold called you, right? We've never spoken, never met. I'm like, hey, Ed, Jay here from Fault Line Sales. Listen, I know I've caught you totally out of the blue. Transparency, this is a cold call. Can I take a moment to tell you why I'm calling, or do you want to hang up on me as quickly as humanly possible? Something like that.
That's good.
And most people kind of go, most people go, I want to hang up, but that was kind of funny. So go ahead and tell me why you're calling. And that's perfect, because now we're in a conversation.
Okay.
And in general, you get more time there.
Okay, so I got the dial sequence, getting there. Now, what's the goal of the email sequence, like the call to action? Where am I trying to get them through these sequences?
Yeah, so the call to action in the emails, again, is in some form or fashion, get them into a meeting, a phone call, a Google Meet, a Zoom Meet, whatever it is. So you can, generally not in your first email, of course, because we want to keep links out of that at all costs. In that second email or beyond, you can put in a calendar link. People sometimes will book. I do find there tends to be a bit of a generational thing. The older folks don't like the calendar links. Not all of them, but as a community, the younger folks, that's what they want. They insist on a calendar link so they can book at what time works for them. You can have a calendar link in. You can ask them to reply and say, when is a good time? When is a good time to call? But the call to action, again, from the email or LinkedIn campaigns are to get them into a conversation, a live conversation, whatever form that takes.
Okay. What if I'm already on the phone with them? Where am I taking them after the phone call?
So obviously the end goal is to get them to buy whatever you're selling, right? Generally, though, we don't want to try and do that in that initial conversation, right? The initial conversation, if we get them on the phone, if they have time to talk, then is to do a bit of a discovery call. Once they understand what you're doing, what you're trying to pitch into a conversation. Like as an example, I called on a guy at a big healthcare facility here in the Bay Area. In the first few moments, he's like, I'm super busy. I got about 30 seconds. 45 minutes later, we were still talking. And what I did was I asked a lot of questions. It was very little about me and what we were selling, and all about him and his problems and pains. And he was, as everyone is, he was more than happy to talk about his problems and his pains and how much they suck and how hard it makes his life. But I was asking good questions to get him to give me that information. So we want to, have a good discovery call, and really, if we can, in that very first call, if we can have a conversation, either qualify or disqualify them as a prospect. And the disqualifying is just as important, if not more important than the qualifying. I want to weed out those people that will just be big time wasters for us.
So what I share with founders when they're trying to get investors, get to know as fast as possible. And, a maybe is a no, treat it like a no type thing, because you'll save yourself a lot of grief and heartache by disqualifying as quick as possible. Okay, great. Now back to this sequence. Say I like it. I got the email sequence. I've got the phone. Where does the LinkedIn email fit in as I'm doing the other two?
Yeah. So again, if we have budget and the ability to, to fund all three and to do all three, we can have a sequence that consists of email, LinkedIn outreach, and phone outreach. So again, it might be, say we're doing a I'll just say a 10-step sequence, right? So step one, like day one might be you do a quick visit to their LinkedIn profile, because if they're a premium LinkedIn user, they have the ability to see who's visiting their profile. So if they pay attention to that, that can be a positive for you. But maybe a quick visit to their profile, and then either like a LinkedIn message on day one, maybe a connection request or an InMail if you have InMail to use, or maybe it's an email outreach. And then we wait a couple days, or maybe 3 or 4 days. And then if we did email on day one, then we maybe do a LinkedIn message and a phone call attempt on day 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever day we figure out. And then we keep this running some combination of email, LinkedIn, in whatever form LinkedIn takes, connection requests, messages or InMails, and phone dial attempts through our sequence. So if it's 10 steps, it could be, say 4 email attempts, 3 or 4, LinkedIn attempts or touch points, and maybe 2 or 3 phone call attempts. There's not like a black and white, here's how many of each you have to do in a given number of steps. Just you want to get a good mix.
So then where we end up, it's kind of like startups where you have to test and iterate, like build, measure, learn, you try, measure, learn. So I'm thinking that if I'm using it, what I'm hearing, $99 each service. So technically $300 gets me all 3 a month. I'm doing that. But we know one little tweak, like you might add 1 extra email or 1 additional phone call, or you might pare this down or change the content, could make a world of difference in your sequence. So it's constantly testing, iterating. How long does this take? Like, let's prepare founders. How much time should they be committed to tweaking, iterating, trying a different cadence, experimentation, all that stuff?
Yeah, so a lot of this is more kind of heavily front-end loaded, right? If we're setting it up initially, right? We're trying to figure out, we're doing some research to figure out with your ICP and your buyer personas, what are common pain points in the community, and then crafting our messaging around that, right? So it's more time invested at the front end. But one thing I always tell folks is you're never done with your messaging, right? You're never like, I've nailed the messaging, it's good for the next 20 years. You're never done. You're always tweaking and iterating. It's a never-ending process. Until the day you stop doing it, you'll be tweaking it. And you're absolutely right. It could be one little thing, take a subject line from 6 words down to 2. The big thing now is subject lines should be all lowercase, because that looks different than all the properly formatted and capitalized words in subject lines. I'm a bit of a spelling and grammar like the police. So the lowercase stuff kills me. I know it works, but I just go, I don't like it. But yeah, the tweaking and iterating never stops. I often tell startup founders, right, or even small business owners, if we're starting from day one, you've got none of this done, and I'm working with you for a few hours a week. We're looking at probably a month from kind of day one to when we've got messaging actually starting to go out the door. It could be a lot faster if we put more time in on the front end, but generally speaking, about a month. If I'm working with you in again, just a few hours a week. If you have the team to go do it yourself, they're full-time, they can put 8-10 hours a day into it. You'll get there much more quickly in like a week or 2.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And I figure that you'd be a great person to talk to. This is where you can come in real handy, because they may be saying, we don't know what to tweak. And you can say, well, here's some guidance on that, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And oftentimes, it's not like I'm not going to be an expert in everyone's industry, of course, but I've been doing this type of outreach thing for a long time. I've seen it done. I've done it myself for my own business a lot. I help a lot of other companies do it. I live and breathe this stuff every day. I'm in webinars and trainings on this stuff all the time, trying to stay on top of the latest, greatest ideas and thinking. And oftentimes just having a fresh set of eyes that's from outside of your organization can be really beneficial.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So with all that, I'm thinking to myself right now, based on this, it's very helpful, by the way, a lot of stuff I didn't even think about, a lot of great nuggets in there. Really LinkedIn is like 20% of the work. It's just getting the list. All the real work happens in the, what do you do with the information that you get off of LinkedIn? That's what happens there. Okay. Yeah. So what other advice would you have for, let's divide into 2 buckets. The founder that wants to try it themselves, do it themselves, what advice to get started? And then second is, what about the company that wants to actually create a sales team or get a sales department going? Give advice to each one.
Yeah, sure. So for the founder that wants to do it themselves, there's a bit of a learning curve, of course, for the different platforms. I would say to get yourself up to speed as quickly as possible, go seek out knowledge, whether it's on YouTube or on the websites of these different platforms. They all have great knowledge bases and video tutorials. But get yourself educated on how to use the platforms efficiently and effectively, and also how to craft the messaging, right? There's no shortage, as there is with anything, but on YouTube and elsewhere on the web, of people who will, tell you the latest, greatest thinking and what's working right now with messaging, number of touch points, how to use email versus LinkedIn versus the phone. There's a bunch of YouTube videos on if you cold call and somebody answers, again, we talked about what do you say in the first 5 or 7 seconds to get them to say, go ahead and tell me why you're calling, as opposed to just hanging up on you. All that knowledge is out there in the world, and that there's going to be a time, an amount of time you've got to give to that to learn how to use these platforms, how to craft the messaging and how to craft your cold call pitch. Now, if you're looking at the other bucket, we're looking at a founder who's looking to build a team. So when we're talking about starting to look at hiring salespeople, right? And that can be very key, because hiring the wrong people can be a huge expense. Another thing I always tell folks is, listen, you can train on product knowledge and sales skills all day long. You can train people how to do this. What you can't train are personality and attitude and motivation. So any day of the week, I would rather hire somebody with a great personality, who's motivated and has a good attitude, and teach them how to sell and teach them the product knowledge, rather than taking somebody who's got no motivation, no personality, but has been in sales for 25 years. They probably haven't done well if they've got no personality and no motivation. But there are different not surveys, but assessments. So I have a colleague in the fractional sales world who is an expert on what's called DISC. It's a kind of personality assessment. So you can go in and run rather low-cost assessments of people as part of your hiring process, try and figure out which of the four categories they fall into in the DISC methodology, and which may be good for that salesperson mentality.
Okay, got it. Give us the hack. What's the hack? So if you had to say, what's one thing that each group can do to just nail it, that you found is like a trade secret, some tradecraft?
Yeah.
What would it be?
Yeah. I'm going to give you two. So the first one is personalization via LinkedIn, or by pulling personalization out of LinkedIn, right? So again, as we talked about a while back, whether you're sending out something over email or even over LinkedIn, if you can personalize it, truly personalize it, if I was to go look at one of your LinkedIn post ad, and again, you had posted something somewhat recently, and I pulled something from there that I can tie to my value prop, the chances of if you saw an email from me with a subject line of, Ed, your post on whatever, women's soccer, whatever it was, and I can tie that into my offer is, there's a better chance you're going to open it, engage with it, and go, oh, this guy actually did some research. Let me reach back out to him. That personalization is number one. And number two, pick up the phone and call your prospects. You'll hear from a million people, all the kind of the social selling is the way to go. Nothing wrong with social selling, but they all tell you the phone's dead. The phone is not dead. Really, really not. And it's really effective when they answer.
Okay. Combine the two. I definitely agree. I don't have experience. I don't call. I don't even pick up my own phone. But
Right.
The whole customizing based on LinkedIn, I definitely agree. When someone contacts me on LinkedIn or email and just says, hey, I see you work at this company, do you need this service? I'm like,
Yes.
My brain turns off right away.
Right.
Like I probably smell it a mile away before I open it.
Exactly.
And then when someone says, I really appreciate your article about this, it was thought-provoking, I'd like to discuss it, and I think, we could work together, that's when my interest gets piqued, for sure.
Right.
Like I know people who have scrubbed my entire LinkedIn profile. And here's a little hack that I do. ChatGPT doesn't allow you to read the LinkedIn page. You can get plugins that read links and actual web pages. It doesn't allow that to occur because I can see what happens. But I will literally just cut and paste everything on the LinkedIn page, and I'll put it into ChatGPT, and it'll go through all like the extra words and what have you, and pick through it, and I'll customize it that way. Lots of success there. So good. The phone thing, wow. Like, I didn't expect that, but makes a lot of sense.
So there's an old joke, Ed, that the heaviest object on any sales floor is the telephone, because people have a real hard time picking it up.
Okay, so let's say someone is scared of picking up the phone. What do you do to help them, coach them, all that stuff?
Yeah, so the best way to get better at anything, just to do it, even if it terrifies you. Right. So, and one of the things that I do with a number of my clients that I've done over the years is, if there's a platform that allows us to do so, we'll get on and do cold calls together. I'll get on and do a few while they're listening, and then have them do a few while I'm listening. And there are platforms that allow me, these like parallel dialers and kind of power dialers will do this. I can be listening in as they're talking, and I can whisper to them where the prospect on the other end can't hear me. You can coach live on a sales call.
Oh, that's nice. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. This is really helpful, JD. Thank you. Awesome. I think a lot of people are going to get out of this what they need to take the next step. Let's talk about you for a moment. Okay.
Yeah.
Give you a moment to brag on yourself because I'm a fan. What's stuff that you work on? Like, what's your main what's in your wheelhouse in terms of what you're great at? So other founders can say, hey, maybe we contact JD.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks. So I've been doing this B2B sales thing for 17 years now. We're coming up on 17 years. I started at a Fortune 50 company, right? United Parcel Service, Big Brown. You may have heard of it. And like any other big companies, they actually flew me away on 2 different occasions to Louisville, Kentucky to go to sales training school. And they weren't teaching me how to sell UPS. They were teaching us how to sell. Period. So I stayed there for a number of years, left and went to a VC funded startup here in San Francisco, selling something totally and completely different than what I was doing at Big Brown. I was there for just under a year because we had the chance to move from here to London, where I followed my better half to her with her career across the pond over to London. We moved there for 2 years, stayed for 5. I left the move necessitated me leaving the startup here, but I found a bootstrap startup in London to join, doing yet again something completely different. But that sales skill set is completely transferable, I learned. But did that there for a few years in London. Well, in London, I got very engaged in the startup scene in London, right? So here we have Silicon Valley. Over there, they have Silicon Roundabout. Right? It's all centered in the east end of London, literally around a roundabout.
I never heard that, actually. Yep. That's hilarious.
Yeah, Silicon Roundabout. So I worked right on Silicon Roundabout. I got very engaged there, and I met a lot of startup founders. I actually attended a startup hiring event in the first few weeks we lived there. There were 200 some startups in a huge space. I went around and sought out all the B2B focused ones, and I started having conversations. And being a sales guy, my first question was always, hey, tell me about your sales strategy, or how do you plan to go to market? I heard over and over and over some variation of the same answer, which was, we have a great product. People just come to our website and buy from us. And I thought, you need some help. That's not how this works. That'll never work this way. I found opportunity, and I started doing some independent consulting, which eventually led to this fractional thing that I do now. But at it a long time, worked with a lot of startups, a lot of small businesses, have a lot of experience in the space. I tend to geek out on the sales tech stack type stuff, the dialing platforms and the video for sales platforms, all that kind of stuff. I know a lot of them. I know a lot of the people at a lot of the companies behind the technology now. So I'm very deeply ingrained in all that stuff and how to be effective and efficient with it.
Okay, and it looks like industry or product doesn't matter. All the principles apply the same across the board.
More or less, yeah, they sure do.
Yeah. Okay. I tell service providers all the time, your process is your product. And so let's talk about the process. If someone contacts you, let's say a founder says, I might be interested, what's the process you're going to take them through to even determine whether you all should work together?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things to that. First is, like we talked about qualifying and disqualifying. We're going to have a quick conversation to see if, if I can be of help. And of course, if you can afford me, right? Because there's a bit of a cost to me. I'm not
sure.
That being said, right, let's say that the budget's no problem, but maybe for whatever reason, I'm not the right person. I am part of an organization with another roughly around 100 of me around the country and up in Canada. You're in Toronto, I think, and I've got a close colleague who does this in Toronto.
Yeah, other side. I'm in Calgary, but
Toronto, Calgary. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. But I know of roughly 100 other of me around the U.S. and up in Canada.
Sure.
And then I'm part of yet another organization where there's not just fractional sales folks, but fractional everything, fractional marketing and human resources and CTOs and even CEOs. I've got a huge network of other folks who can come in and be of help. Maybe you don't need the sales help. Maybe you need something else. You don't want to hire somebody full-time or don't need to hire somebody full-time or can't afford to hire somebody full-time yet. You bring in somebody at a much more effective cost point or price point and start to get yourself down the right path. Okay.
So you want to help out. So first it's kind of qualify. And if you can't help them, you'll connect them. Let's talk brass tacks. Like, what are we talking about minimum level of entry? If I'm sitting and going, do I even have the budget to be able to afford a JD? What number should I be thinking of at least to start? I know it can scale up depending on how much time they need. What's the entry level pay to play price?
Yeah. So the friends and family startups.com rates.
Nice.
So we're generally looking at, everyone always wants like a framework around a standard agreement or standard engagement. There's not really a engagement. But to put a kind of some numbers around it, a standard engagement would be 4 hours a week, 16 hours a month, however that pans out. And we're looking around $3,000 a month.
Okay.
Roughly.
And it's important. I'm going to tell founders what to do. Like, you may have sticker shock or different things. Well, think about what a full-time person would cost, but also you want to analyze your ROI. Say, hey, this is what $3,000 investment is going to yield me hopefully $30,000 in sales eventually. Mm-hmm. How long would you say, JD, it takes to get the system up and running? Because you're not going to hit the deck running and, go 10X for them tomorrow. Right. How long?
So the numbers, the timeframes I always offer up are, if we're starting from kind of ground zero, if you will, right? We got to build everything out, including the technology platforms, the domains, warm up email addresses, craft the messaging, all that kind of stuff. Generally from day one until we've got messaging, live messaging effectively going out the door is about a month. Okay. Could be a little longer, could be a little shorter. And then usually there's this magical 3-month time frame. I don't know why it's 3 months, but it's always right around 3 months where we really start to get traction. Start getting messaging out the door toward the end of month 1. Say we've got a campaign that runs 6 weeks. So we're like, at the end of the campaign, we're about 2.5 months into the whole process. Starting to get some traction. We're getting some positive replies in the LinkedIn or email messaging. We're getting people to answer the phone and having conversations. It always works out to around 3 months. It's a weird thing, but that's the number.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. JD, what's the best way for everybody to get a hold of you? I'm going to include the links and all that stuff to your LinkedIn, et cetera. But what do you prefer?
Email's great. Jay at faultlinesales.com. I'm here in San Francisco, so I live on top of a fault line. So hence the name of the company. When I first came up with that name, I was thinking of like cheesy, like, I'm going to shake up your revenue. We're going to crack open new revenue streams. And I thought, that's ridiculous. Again, back to being kind of a goofy guy. But that's where the name comes from. Jay at Faultline Sales.
Okay.
or reach out via startups.
Okay, awesome. And obviously, anybody in our community, connect with me if you want a personal introduction to JD, or you want to have a conversation with me to know if you're a fit ahead of time. We do that. We're working together. JD, as I said, is the co-advisor with me, advises a lot of startups. I'm sending founders his way all the time. So JD, once again, appreciate it. Appreciate everybody who's going to be watching this video. And if you have any questions, thoughts, do all the YouTube and social media stuff in terms of leaving comments and likes, and stuff. But next time I'm going to grill JD more on some other advanced sales techniques. So this is going to be the beginning of a series. I like it. I dig it. JD, last word to you. What's your encouragement?
If you need help, don't be shy. Reach out, right? Hit me up on Slack, again, email, wherever it is, but reach out. Let's have a conversation. You got to get started. The best way to get started is just to get started.
Sounds good.